Hi guys. So in October, I always like to do at least one Monster High centric video for what I feel are pretty obvious reasons. And I would have liked to do this one a little closer to Halloween, but I'm pretty busy this next week and I wasn't sure if I would have time to get a video out, so we're a little early, but we're here to celebrate Halloween. So I was just sitting there like, what's a good video for this month? Monster High is a good starting point, but what's something fun and engaging? And then it hit me. Negativity, obviously. Spite. Sowing the seeds of dissent and toxicity. That's right. I know you all. I know what you want to see. And that's why today we're going to talk about the worst Monster High lines. Because what's more fun than that, right? On a serious note, though, this is obviously not going to be a super serious video. I don't mean any harm at all by it. Your opinions, no matter what they are, they're valid. But if this is just the kind of video that makes you, like, actually angry, my advice is simply to not watch it. Don't watch things that make you angry. But yeah, it's just all for fun. So the way I went about this, because I didn't want this video to be solely my opinions, is I put out surveys on Twitter and here on YouTube asking open-endedly, what is the worst Monster High line? I did separate ones for all three generations, and because I didn't want the answers to be too easy, I made sure to add on that if your first answer was a budget line, to also name a deluxe line you thought was the worst. Just because I feel like budget lines are super easy to pick on, right? So full disclosure, that will make these statistics like not super professionally aggregated, but hey, I majored in theater. The correct method of compiling accurate statistics and data is just simply none of my business. So what I'm gonna do now that I've charted everything is I'm just going to go through each generation and give the top 5 responses. That seems fair, yeah? And I'm going to go backwards too. So starting with generation 3, let's get into it. So the survey for Monster High Generation 3 got a total of 357 individual responses, plus the 64 additional responses to that second question, for a total of 421 answers. At number 5, so the 5th highest response is Fabulous Pets, which received 11 total mentions, making 2.6% of our responses. These sweatbands are just too big for my little wrists. And 2.6% is not an overwhelming number, obviously, but I do see why this one came up a few times. Conceptually, it really is just not the most exciting line. Draculaura and Claudine, while they don't have my favorite outfits I've seen from them, I will say that I really love their color schemes. I think the accessories are all really cute. The base dolls, again, really cute. For me, for my opinion, I don't hate the line. It's just not calling out to me. Cleo, though, oh, I don't know what happened with her. She is just so incredibly unfortunate looking to me. Like, the top and the shorts look like they came from 2 completely different outfits, and I've seen her in person, and just something about her face, I don't know what it is, but she is actually one of my least favorite G3 dolls. I don't know, I've tried to love her, but I just can't. And at number 4, just slightly above Fabulous Pets, is Skulltimate Secrets Wave 2, the Descent line. This one got 20 mentions, which made it 4.7% of the total responses. I honestly expected this one to be a bit higher. I mean, I like the Descent line, or rather, I like certain things about the Descent line, but I also see why it's just not very popular. I think the design strength, the creativity, all that good stuff is there, but the execution, not so much. And I think that's kind of a recurring thing with G3 on lines like this. I appreciate the ambition, but there's just like 1 or 2 weird decisions that just kind of throw everything off. Like the cellophane clothing pieces in this line, they're gross. They're just gross. I cannot imagine why anyone would want this material in a toy. And it's like the main gimmick of this line too. Why would you center an entire line around the worst fabric known to doll production? Like, what sense does that make from a marketing standpoint, a design standpoint, anything? I will say that Iridescent Cleo is one of my all-time favorite G3 dolls, though. I really love her. Cleo has her highs and her lows. Number 3 now, we have Creepover Party, which received a respectable 59 total mentions, giving it around 14% of the responses. A lot of the responses didn't have reasonings, which I didn't specify anywhere that I wanted them to, because if everyone did it, it would make logging everything a lot more difficult. But a lot of the answers that mentioned Creepover Party also put a disclaimer that they didn't want to count Twyla. And I agree with that. Twyla, I think she's a super cute doll, but the Creepover line, like, as a whole, Aside from Twyla, I haven't bought any dolls from the Creepover line, and I don't really plan to. I think I'm just not that interested in pajama lines in general. Like, it's not a very exciting theme to me. And Creepover Party doesn't really do anything new with it. They're all in kind of the same shirt and pajama pants combo, and I really don't like the robes either. I think they take away from their outfits more than they add to them. I think G3 consistently does storytelling and play value really well. Just all the accessories and the visuals and the scenarios the dolls create. And that's one thing I can compliment for this line too, but yeah, I don't know. It just kind of bores me. I think that it really shows that this was one of the first lines released for G3. Now the runner-up at number 2, Ghoul Spirit, which received a respectable 83 mentions, giving it 19.7% of the total responses. And all I gotta say is I'm surprised that it wasn't number 1. This set was, first of all, way too expensive. Second of all, I mean, I don't hate the designs. Like, on paper, some of the dolls are pretty cute, but the quality of this set, even for a big multi-pack where you expect some corners to be cut here and there, it was garbage. It was awful. And now that G3 has aged a bit more, and I've seen what they're capable of, like, this just doesn't cut it. It shouldn't have cut it. And I have to focus on Cleo again. It's just so fascinating to me how Cleo can look so different from doll to doll, because this Cleo, it does not even look like Cleo to me. That is just a completely different girl, a far more unfortunate girl. But yeah, it makes complete sense to me that this one ranked so high, because not only is it disappointing, it's just really forgettable too. Like, now that G3 has gone on for a little longer and we've all been collecting the dolls, I just don't see anyone talking about this set or the dolls from it. I don't see any photographs of them. They just went into the ether, or the plastic bin in someone's closet, probably. And now, the worst Monster High line of G3, at least according to my followers. At number 1, Skulltimate Secrets Neon Frights, which received 94 total mentions, giving it 22.3% of the total responses. And not gonna lie, this one surprised me a bit. It's not my favorite line, but I didn't think it was so maligned. I don't know if I agree. There was one person who did give their reasoning in the response, and they said they found it strange how it was supposed to be like a cozy sleepwear line, but had all these garish neon accents. But I don't know. I think that's kind of a cool concept, and it's only partially a sleepwear line. The second look is supposed to be like going to a party or something. I will say I think the lineup is a little strange. Like, I don't exactly see Twyla going to a rave, for instance. And I guess the execution is a little off on some of them. Like, Twyla looks one way in her stock photo, and in real life, her hair, her bangs especially, they look so awful. Just absolutely dreadful. But I think Neon Frights Toralei is so cute. I think that Frankie is really cute. Agulia is there. So I don't know. I don't think it's the worst, but the people have spoken. For me, my number one worst G3 line would definitely be Ghoul Spirit, so I'm at least a little vindicated. And now we move to Monster High Generation 2. This one should be fun, right? I know how you all feel about G2. So the G2 survey received the fewest responses. There were 262 individual responses, plus 144 additional responses for the second question. So that makes 406 in total. To start us off in 5th place is actually the G2 signature line, How Do You Boo?, which received 27 mentions, giving it 6.6% of the total responses. And I get it, if you were a Monster High fan when G1 was active, I think we have like the collective trauma of seeing these dolls for the very first time. I remember it very specifically. I was at some kind of like family gathering. I was just on my phone and I saw the first images on Tumblr and it literally ruined my night. I was in such a bad mood the entire time and I couldn't tell anyone that it was because the Monster High dolls changed their faces. But now that I look back on G2 with a new lens, I mean, I still don't love them, but I can appreciate them a little more. G2 Frankie in particular, I actually really like. I think her outfit is really cute, and I've always maintained that the kind of wide-eyed, innocent look suits Frankie as a character. But taking everything into context, yeah, these aren't spectacular dolls by any means. And the line also encompasses the budget dolls too, the ones with no arm articulation and just really lazy dresses, so yeah, I'm not going to disagree here. At number 4, I combined two of them because a lot of the responses actually mention these two together. So the cheerleading dolls and the swimsuit dolls collectively received 37 mentions and 9.1% of the total responses. And I mean, yeah, these are just really objectively bad dolls. Lazy, cheap, disappointing, unnecessary. We know this. You don't need me to tell you this. We all have eyes, right? And I'd guess they're only at number 4 because they're just so easy to dismiss, right? Like, they're just so nothing. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just completely forgot about them. At number 3, we have Monster Family, which got 44 mentions, giving it 10.8% of the total responses. So this includes all of the sets that had the little siblings, the random little siblings that literally popped out of nowhere. And I hated these sets. It was whenever I saw these for the first time that I was like, yeah, Monster High is officially dead. That was my cutoff point. I stopped collecting for good after that until G3 rolled around. The little sibling dolls, like, yeah, I guess they serve a purpose. I guess they have their audience, but I just thought they were so hideous. They were just these awful little gremlins infesting what was once my favorite doll line of all time. Especially Cleo's little... what was her name? Sandy. Sandy, this awful little creature. Sandy was my breaking point. Sandy ruined it all for me. Sandy is the Monster High, what the biblical plagues were to Egypt. Also, Cleo's sweater dress, or whatever it is in this set, repulsive. I've softened up on a lot of G2 stuff recently, but not this. Not this. So, number 2. Emoji. This line received 53 mentions, which gives it 13% of the total responses. And yeah, I saw this one coming. I think Emoji is the line that, like, literally everyone brings up when they want to point out how bad G2 was. And, like, for good reason, right? At least with the swimsuit and the cheer dolls, they weren't pretending to be anything other than just the absolute bare minimum. This line, though, is trying to make us believe that there's some concept here, that any amount of thought or creativity went into making them. There's just really nothing good to say about them. They really do kind of perfectly exemplify everything wrong with G2, don't they? Just thoughtless, lazy dolls put out to squeeze the last dollars from a brand on life support. Man, those really were dark times, huh? But there was one line that received more votes than this one did, and this one kind of surprised me too. So, according to my followers, the number one worst Monster High G2 line was Electrified, which received 92 mentions and 22.6% of the responses. So I actually, personally, don't hate this line. At least by G2 standards, I don't think it's that bad. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a great line, but I don't know if I would call it the worst. There were at least 2 responses I saw that gave some reasoning. One said specifically because of Frankie, and another said specifically because of Cleo. And Cleo is just like not getting room to breathe in this video, is she? But I kind of see it for Frankie. You know, the hair was a choice, and the fact she has that little thing that lights up so you can't move her arms or do anything at all with her, really. Yeah, Frankie in particular was just a really poorly thought out doll. Now, if it were up to me, I would say that the worst Monster High G2 line is lots of looks. Well, okay, Frankie's fine. Bad, but not like the worst doll I've ever seen, but Draculaura, horrendous. Some of the most atrocious clothing pieces I've ever seen on a doll. Just absolutely, inexcusably ugly. Lots of looks, only got 4 total mentions on that survey, so to those 4 people, we're now best friends. And now it's time for Monster High Generation 1, which got the most responses of all 3 surveys, with 400 individual responses, plus 136 extra responses for the second question, which makes a total of 536 responses. Okay, so at 5th place, and it's really more like a runner-up because the difference in numbers between number 5 and the other 4 is substantial, but number 5 is Boo York, which got 21 mentions and 3.9% of the total responses. And a lot of the responses also made sure to mention not Cleo and not Nephra. They weren't factoring them into their decision, but yeah, I'm not mad at this placement. I do think in the grand scheme of things, Boo York had a lot of really forgettable dolls, especially the new characters, Luna, Mercedes, and Ellie. I never really got invested in them, and I'm pretty sure I didn't buy any of their dolls either. Mercedes, too, her gala outfit is like one of my most beloathed G1 dolls. I think she looks so supremely stupid in this outfit. It is just ridiculous. And all the other dolls in this line, like, I don't have anything mean to say about them, but I remember that even as the Boo York dolls were on shelves, I just wasn't that interested in them, so I can see how they ended up here. Now, with a pretty big leap up in votes, at number 4, we have Geek Shriek, which received 54 total mentions and about 10% of the responses. I'm a little surprised it wasn't higher, honestly. First off, absolutely ridiculous concept for a line. And even then, if you're going to center a line around just wearing glasses, you got to at least make sure the glasses look good. But they don't. These are some of the ugliest doll glasses I've ever seen. This is just not a line I think should have made it past the concept stage. It's one of those things that you just shout at random when you're brainstorming for ideas and you're not really meant to take it seriously. There had to be several upon several bad decisions all in a row for this line to have been conceptualized, designed, produced, packaged, and then sold. It is fun to pull out, though, when people go on posts about G3 and they're like, man, I miss when Monster High was edgy and goth and dark. And you're just like, yeah, sure, goth and edgy. I'll give it to Frankie, though. I do think Frankie's Geek Shriek dress is pretty cute, even if the rest isn't. That's my one compliment for this line. Now, number 3, which scooched ahead of Geek Shriek by only 1 vote. Ghouls Alive, which got 55 mentions and therefore 10.2% of the total responses. Now, Ghouls Alive is one of those things where it's like, it's just so obviously made for kids that it almost feels mean to pick on it, but I will anyway. They are just so ugly. It was a very ambitious line. I know that. They wanted to do something cool. I respect it. But due to all the mechanisms and everything, the dolls themselves just came out looking so bad. And some better than others, like Spectra, she's mostly fine. Toralei, just more or less a worse version of her signature doll. But Deuce, Frankie, Claudine, they're so bad. And they also just, like, more than any other Monster High line, I think, are just degrading so quickly over time. Every time I see one of these dolls now, they are just in the worst condition. And it could just be that it was mostly young children who had them and not collectors. But every time I see one, they look like they've been hit by a truck before being photographed. Now, number 2. I think the last two are not going to be a big surprise to anyone, honestly, but number 2 is Great Scarier Reef, which got 60 total mentions and 11.1% of the total responses. I mean, yeah. When I heard that Monster High was doing a line full of mermaids, oh my god, I was over the moon, and then the actual photos of the dolls came out, and I was not so excited anymore. I do think it's cool they explored a lot of different ideas beyond, just the traditional mermaid. I think Draculaura, like as a vampire squid, that's creative, but the problem is just that the final product is not that interesting, I don't think. Especially if you collect Monster High for, the fashion aspect, it's just not really there. I think that Kala and Perry and Pearl, they're pretty cool at least for really pushing the boundaries of what fashion dolls and fashion doll bodies are capable of. They deserve props for that, but they're not enough to carry the whole line. It's just one of those things that I think could have been really cool, but wasn't. And a lot of people also associate this line as like really the beginning of the end for Monster High G1, so that doesn't help either. And now for the grand finale. The line to be crowned the worst Monster High line of G1 is Freaky Fusion, which received a very considerable 110 votes, giving it 20.5% of the total responses. Well, is anyone surprised? I'm certainly not. Freaky Fusion has long been considered a pretty sore spot in Monster High history. Though a lot of the responses did say that they liked the new characters, the hybrids, and I agree. The hybrids, the girls, I thought were some really cool and interesting dolls. Not Nathan, though. I don't like him. I think he's incredibly ugly. But most of the responses referred specifically to the fusion characters, and I can't possibly disagree. I mean, look at them. And again, I can respect that it's a very creative and a very ambitious concept, but it's just not a concept I really wanted to visit. And there's just so much going on too. Like the dolls, in my opinion, are just like visual eyesores. So many colors, so many contrasting ideas, and I get that's the point and all, but it's just not elements I want in my fashion dolls. And the worst part is, once you get past the base dolls and how busy they are, you see that the fashions, like the actual outfits, they're actually kind of simple and not that interesting, and they really don't add anything to the character designs either. So yeah, bizarre concept, bizarre execution. I can definitely see why this one isn't remembered very fondly. And I do actually agree, I think. If I were to personally pick the worst Monster High G1 line, I think it would be Freaky Fusion. And now that we've gone through all the generations, we are here at the end of the video, which means it's your turn. Go ahead and tell me what you think are the worst Monster High lines. If you agreed or if you disagreed with the rankings here. If there were some that didn't make the top 5 that you think absolutely should have, tell me all about it. Be negative, be evil, be shady, but do be civil and respect everyone's opinions. Also, since I'm probably not going to be able to make like a proper Halloween video, tell me what you're dressing up as. I want to know. And when you're done with all of that, just be sure to like and subscribe for any future fashion doll content. Happy Dolloween!